What are pickups, and why do you need to know about them when you're playing R&B guitar? Stick around for the question of the week, where I'll shed a little bit more light and give you my thoughts. This week's question comes from Leon. For an R&B feel, do you always use the neck pickup, or do you have certain pedals that help you get that tone? You know what? That's a great question because R&B is all about feel. So there are three things I want to cover when I'm answering Leon's question. I'm going to kind of unpack them a little differently. So just stick around because I'm going to share with you a bonus tip of exactly how you can develop your own tone. Pickups are transducers, right? They're used in order to kind of take the vibration from the strings and pass it through your guitar, through your chord to your amp, right? So essentially pickups are like microphones. And we know that there are a lot of different types of microphones that are out there. So there's so many different types of pickups. They're like shoes, different brands, different models. They can do a lot of different things. There are a lot of different configurations. If you see this particular guitar, this is an HSS setup. Love this setup, right? Also, there are different types of pickups, but we're going to get into that a little bit later. So let's talk about point number 2. All right, so I want to talk to you about the importance of tone, right? Now, this is where you could really go down a rabbit hole when you're coming to chasing your tone, right? There's so much gear that's out there. I tell my campers all the time, be mindful of your pockets because you could find yourself chasing tone and spending a whole lot of money and never really sounding like the person that you kind of like want to mimic their tone. A lot of tone is in these hands. It's in your hands, right? So yeah, you got to have the gear. Yeah, you got to have pedals. Yeah, you got to have amps, but a lot of it is in your hands. You can grab a different guitar and still make it sound and feel the way that, not feel, but sound the way that you want it to sound because a lot of tone is in your hands, right? So what pedals would I suggest for R&B? That's a great question. At this phase in my career, I love all-in-ones, and I'll tell you why. Because I do a lot of fly dates. I fly different places. And one thing that I do not like when I used to have my analog boards was TSA taking them apart. I don't like that because I'm not that tech savvy. And every gig I don't have a tech on. So sometimes I have to get on the phone with somebody and be like, yo, how do you plug this one? Where does this one go? Daisy chain? It's too much for me. I want something to where like if TSA sees it, they're like, okay, we know what it is. It's a pedal board. All right, let's move on out. And I don't have to worry about trying to reconfigure my sound and my tone every single time for every gig. So I personally use the Helix. Now, the Helix is expensive. I don't suggest that you go in, if you're a novice, you're just new to this game, you're a newbie or whatever, do not go spend all your money unless you just like, you know what, man, I got it. I just want to floss. If that's what you want to do, I can't tell you how to spend your bread, but I do suggest that you don't spend a lot of money in the beginning until you figure out what it is that you like. Some people like pedals, right? If I had to choose pedals, what are the basic pedals that I would use? Number one, I need to have a tuner. It's always important to make sure you're in tune. I definitely want to have an overdrive so that way I can kick it up if I ever need to solo. I love reverb, right? Sometimes the amp reverb doesn't necessarily give you the presence that you want. Sometimes you need to have your own personal reverb that you can dial in a little bit better. And I like a little delay, especially for R&B. I feel like you have those, you could cover a lot of ground. You cover a lot of real estate when it comes to you really perfecting and working on your tones, right? I want to go back into that part because there was a good friend of mine. I saw he was doing an interview. Lawrence Jones said, well, I want to talk about pickups before I get into like just unpacking a little bit more of the gear because it does coincide because pickups is a part of the gear, especially when you're trying to pick out different brands. Why do I use the neck pickup when it comes to R&B, right? He said the neck pickup, that's R&B. The bridge pickup, that's rock. The middle pickup is church. And I 100% agree with him, man. I probably couldn't have said it any better than that when it comes to the pickup configuration, especially when it comes to using the HSS. I love this. This is one of my main go-tos for my guitars. You may see me play a guitar that's modeled with this particular pickup configuration. Even if I'm playing a humbucker, I need to use the bridge. I need to use the neck pickup. The bridge is mainly for rocks and for solo, right? But that neck pickup has got to be warm and buttery. It's got to give me that very essence. So I'm really keen on this particular setup. So when I do have those different pedals, they work together. It's all a team. It's like, Jordan and Pippen, or, like Shaq and Kobe, or whoever is your fabulous, duo that you like when it comes to like pairing them together. They got to work well together. So with the pickups and the gear have to work together, right? So that's point number 2. Now let's get into point number 3. Point number 3 is the types of pickups that I use, right? So there are so many different brands out there that you can really find yourself also going down a rabbit hole when it comes to pickups. My brand that I personally like, that I'm really fond of, is Lambertone. Lambertones are, which exactly the pickups that I have in this guitar right now, have definitely given me my tone and my sound that I like. Now, there's so many different pickup configurations that come in your guitar. Sometimes they have factory pickups. Some of them sound great. Some of them don't sound the way that you can really want them to sound. Shop around before you decide to be like, oh, because he said Lambertone, I'm going to get what he said. If you do, my hat's off to you. I love it. But that may not be the tone that sounds good for you. I would highly suggest listening to a lot of demos of the different types of pickups that you're listening for. And sometimes when you're listening to the demos, it might be the player and not the pickup. And what I mean by that, sometimes you have great players like demoing some of this stuff and they sound phenomenal. Listen to a few different guys. Now, if you find guys who don't have a high skill level, but the guitar still sounds great, then you know you're getting a quality product. So then you might be like, yo, I definitely want to get that. But if you're listening to A-list players playing every single time on the gear, it may be a little deceiving because tone is in your hands for sure. But you know, you want your pickups to sound great. So if they don't sound that good and you got a star player playing them, like, it may make you think that the good stuff is good, and then you get it and you're like, yo, it don't sound like that in my guitar. So listen to a lot of different demos before you decide to hunker down and anchor down on a specific brand, right? There are a lot of different brands out there. I'm a fan, like I said, of Lambertone. I've done some Porter pickups, Lindy Fralin pickups. I've even used some Seymour Duncan pickups on some of my other guitars. But time and time again, I find myself migrating back to Lambertone because that's a pickup that really sounds and feels good for me. All right. So just so you understand, like, this is it's a lot of stuff that goes into, you know, why you want your R&B tone, how you want your R&B tone to sound, and just the specific things. But I definitely want to say, like, when you're playing R&B, especially on a Strat style guitar, matter of fact, the guitar does not matter. You want to use the neck pickup. It's that warm, buttery sound. And let me give you an example, right? So let's just say I'm playing on my guitar. I'm using the neck pickup, right? So this is the tone that you're going to get. The middle. This is not the middle. This is the neck in the middle. It's cool. It's just not as warm as I want to get. The middle. All right. The middle and the bridge. And the bridge. Again, because a lot of tone is in my hand, as I went through the different pickup configurations, you might be like, well, they all sound good. That's because the tone is in the hand. But when you're listening back to playback, or if people are like really paying attention to the tonal qualities, the neck is perfect for R&B. So I want to make sure you guys sit in that and know that the neck is perfect for R&B. When it comes back to the gear situation, remember, don't go down a rabbit hole and spend all your money on everything. There's so many different options, so many different pedals. For me, I'm a fan of all-in-one. So like the Boss, the Helix, there's a lot of different brands, a lot of different configurations. Try before you buy. If you get a chance to go try out the gear, definitely do so. If you want to get pedals, because that's your thing, your thug fizzle, you want to get a tuner. Overdrive, a decent overdrive pedal. You definitely want to find reverb, and you want to find a delay. I also like to use a volume expression pedal because it allows you to swell into stuff. That's a great thing for R&B because those swells is something that's key. When you definitely have a certain level of mastery of how you play your chords and delivery, you can't go without having a great overdrive, great setup, great volume pedal, great reverb and delay. Those all work together. Like it's just the perfect combination. And for me, my particular brand that I like to settle in on is Lambertone. There's so many different options. Listen to a lot of videos before you start to dig in. All right, that's super important. All right, so now I want to talk to you as a bonus, as I said before, how do you start to begin to develop your own sound? I can help you develop your own sound, specifically in Kerry's camp. I definitely want you to come and be a part, because that's what we do. We help you tone shape. It's really important for you to figure those things out. What do you get your influence from? Like, how do you develop your sound? How do you develop your overall tone? You get that in Kerry's camp. So definitely check out Kerry's camp, because I want to make sure that you get to understand what that looks like. So just to recap, I want to talk about the things that we covered with Leon's great question. Do I always use the neck pickup? Yes, essentially yes. What are pickups? Pickups are like microphones for your guitar. There's so many different types. Do your homework to investigate like which ones sound best for you. I personally use Lambertones in a lot of my guitars, specifically this guitar right here. Also, when you listen to demos, don't just listen to demos of some like elite players. Listen to demos from the everyday average Joe, because that will let you know if it sounds good in their hands, it's probably going to sound good in yours, because a lot of these players can make anything sound great. And you could be fooled and you could be duped into thinking that like, oh, this stuff is A-list quality, when it may not sound that great in your stuff. Also, if I had to pick pedals, like if I was going to build a pedal board and that's my thing or whatever, tuner, overdrive, delay, and reverb. And I like to have a volume pedal. But my overall preference right now in this phase of my career are all-in-ones. I personally use the Helix Line 6, like that's my go-to, right? But there are other boards that I've used in the past. The Boss ME80, I think, is a top-notch board that doesn't cost a lot of money. Do your research, try before you buy, because it's an expensive hobby. And if you're not making money off of it, you could spend a lot of money doing it. So hopefully these things helped out for you. Let me know in the comments if you like stuff like this. And if you have a question, because I definitely want to answer your question for the question of the week. All right, take care.